The Random Legacy by Sims 4 Lizzie UK, Gen 1, Episode 1. Mandi Romero was ready for a fresh start. She was a cheerful sort of girl, it had always been that way. But even then, she couldn't deny that it was time to go and live her own life. She'd never known her parents. By this point, she just wanted to get away from it all. She knew exactly where she wanted to go. She wanted to go to the city. It had always been Mandi's dream to move to the city and find her passion. Explore somewhere new, filled with skyscrapers, filled with people that had dreams just like Mandi. Broken people looking for a fresh start. Successful people basking in their achievements, people from all sorts of different backgrounds and walks of life. Mandi wanted to join them, and when she turned 20 years old, she decided that the time was now. Finally, she saved up enough money to pursue her dream, and she moved to San Myshuno. She found a small apartment in the spice market called 2B Jasmine Suites. It wasn't one of the suspiciously cheap places, but it was a good affordable price, and Mandi loved it. She also found herself a job in a nearby office, doing paperwork for a local politician, and she would start next week. Before then, the world was her oyster. She was finally here in San Myshuno, and she was already starting to feel at home. Once she'd got moved into her new apartment, it didn't take long. She didn't have a lot of possessions yet. She went straight out to explore the local area. She found a small karaoke bar, and a bartender, a kind-looking woman with curly red hair, smiled at her welcomingly. "New around here?" "Yeah," Mandi replied, a little relieved. "What gave me away?" The woman laughed. "I can usually tell. You have that starry-eyed look about you. It's your first time in the city, isn't it?" Mandi nodded, flushing a little. "I've always wanted to come here. It's been my dream since I was a kid. I'm Mandi Romero. I'd just moved into Jasmine Suites." "Ah!" The woman's eyes light with recognition. "Yes, just nearby. That's a good place. You'll do well there. Arun and Jasminda are a lovely couple as well. They're your neighbours. I went to school with Jasminda. Do you have a job yet?" "Yes," Mandi told her, pleased to have some success to tell of. "I found one in an office nearby. I start next week." "Well, good luck. If you ever find yourself short of cash, there are always spare shifts available here. I'm Shayla, by the way, Shayla Kearney. I'll usually be here if you fancy some company." "Thanks, Shayla," Mandi replied with a smile, comforted that she may already have a friend in the city. "No problem," Shayla answered, smiling back as she turned back to polishing glasses. Mandi fell silent as another woman walked into the bar. A tall, superior-looking sort of woman with tightly bound black hair and a long green dress. Seeing Mandi's expression, Shayla laughed again. "Don't worry, Mandi. Lily may look scary, but she's nothing to be afraid of." "Hey, Lily, this is Mandi. She's new here." Lily turned her eyes to Mandi, who swallowed. "New in the city, are you?" "My name is Lily Feng. You may have heard of me and my husband." Mandi bit her lip. I'm sorry." A smile broke across Lily's face, and she shook her head. "Not to worry. We're big in the business world, but perhaps not so much in the karaoke bar. Maybe I should work on fixing that." Mandi grinned. "What, do you want to sing karaoke together sometime?" Mandi had always loved singing. She was very glad to have a karaoke bar close to her flat. It would be fun to go there and practice. She was surprised by the devious grin that came onto Lily's face. "Oh, I like you, Mandi. We're going to be good friends. Here's my phone number. Just stick with me and you'll be fine." Mandi stared as Lily put a phone number into her hands. "Wow, thanks. I'll see you soon then." "Yes, do." "I'll give you a tip," Shayla put in. "We're pretty quiet here at this time of day. If you want to meet some people, you might want to head out a bit. Good luck, Mandi." "Thanks." Mandi waved a cheerful goodbye to Lily and Shayla, hopefully her new friends, and headed out. For most of the evening, she just wandered the city streets by herself, wearing a huge grin and staring at the skyscrapers in awe. She'd never seen anything like this before. It was truly incredible. She was going to be very happy here, she could tell. As the sky started to darken, she headed to one of the food stalls on her way home. A pale man with curly blonde hair stood behind the counter, was wearing a name tag reading Guadalupe, and was calling out advertisements for his wares, but stopped and smiled as Mandi approached him. "Well, good evening. What can I get for you?" Mandi stood up on her tiptoes, craning to see the menu behind him. There'd never been so many options in the place where she'd grown up. It's hard to choose. There are so many options." He laughed. "By any chance, did you just move here?" How does everyone keep knowing that? Well, a street food seller sees a lot of things and knows a lot of local bartenders. Oh, Mandi laughed. Oh, right, so Shayla told you about me. She did, said to look out for you. You seem to be making friends in high places as well. Lily fun. She seems nice. Oh, she's nice enough. Her and Victor are a great couple, really. Now, how about some nice spring rolls? She nodded, grateful for the suggestion. That sounds great, thanks. How much? 4 simoleons, he told her, and I'll give you an extra spring roll. How about that? It can be my way of saying, welcome to the city, and please come back to the food stall where the nice man gave you extra food. Mandi laughed again. This guy was great. Thanks, Guadalupe. I'll definitely be back here. That's what I like to hear. Have a great evening. Mandi, right? Yeah. I'll see you later, Guadalupe. You have a great evening as well. Mandi smiled to herself as she headed back to her apartment, eating her spring rolls as she went. The city seemed like a great place, and everyone had been so nice to her so far. She'd do great things here, she was sure of it. Before she went to bed after eating, she turned her eyes to her prized possession. She'd saved up a lot of money so that she could have this in her apartment. Her very own karaoke machine. She sang for a while to her heart's content, and then glanced at the clock at about 10 p.m. Probably time to stop with the loud singing and get some sleep. She was woken up, however, at something like 1 in the morning. What on earth was that banging sound? There was a noise somewhere out in the corridor, a sort of thudding, and then voices. Oh, Arun! Arun! Mandi pulled her pillow over her head, but these people were loud. How did they manage to be so loud? Groaning, Mandi got up and went to knock loudly at the door of the apartment across the hallway. An annoyed-looking man with black hair appeared after a bit. What? He said irritably. Do you think you could keep it down? Mandi asked, exasperated, and he let out a sigh that was somewhat reminiscent of a disobedient teenager. Who are you again? I'm Mandi, the new neighbour. I was going to introduce myself tomorrow, but I'm sorry, I can't sleep and it's really late. Could you try to be a bit quieter, please? He rolled his eyes. I'm sorry, I can't help that I have a life. See you around, new neighbour. Mandi sighed, dejected, and returned to her room. Thankfully, the noise stopped after a little while, and she was able to get some sleep. The next morning, she found the piece of paper from last night and called Lily. She could do with a friend. Lily came over once Mandi had texted her the address and looked at Mandi's karaoke machine, impressed. Oh, look at that! Your own karaoke machine. You're a girl that knows how to have fun, then. Mandi nodded, shooting Lily a grin. That I am. It's second-hand, but it works great. Want to have a go with me? Lily wandered over to the karaoke machine and started looking through the songs. Eventually, she looked up, eyes shining with energy. Yes, I think I will. Mandi and Lily spent most of the morning singing karaoke and had a great time. Lily wasn't a bad singer at all, and somehow that didn't surprise Mandi. After that, Lily invited Mandi out for lunch, and Mandi was very happy to accept. It was so nice that she'd already made a friend in the city. Have you heard of GeekCon? Lily asked her over lunch, and Mandi's eyes lit up. Yeah, it sounds awesome! All the gaming and the costumes, I've heard such amazing things about it. Well, there's one tomorrow, Lily told her. You should go. Mandi clapped her hands together in excitement. Tomorrow? Oh my gosh, yes, that sounds amazing. Will you go with me? Lily laughed, shaking her head. It isn't really my scene, but you should go. You'd have a good time. Mandi nodded enthusiastically. I will, thanks for the tip. After she said goodbye to Lily, she spent the afternoon shopping for a costume. She couldn't wait. GeekCon. She'd actually be going to GeekCon. It would be so much fun. She'd always loved gaming and she loved science fiction as well. She was determined that she was going to have a great time. A thought suddenly struck her. Why didn't she invite the landlady? Her name was Arahi Savalani, and she'd messaged Mandi a couple of times to check in on how she was settling in. She was really nice, but she seemed a bit lonely. Mandi thought it would be fun to go to GeekCon together. That night, she just had a nice night in by herself. She made herself some tea, just grilled cheese sandwiches, and then she relaxed on the sofa and played some video games. She loved being with people, but it was nice just to have a night at home as well. Mandi absolutely loved her apartment. It was in a great location and it was very cosy. She was so happy to be here. The next day, she put on her outfit and went to GeekCon with Arahi, who'd accepted her invitation. Arahi dressed up as well, and she and Mandi both had a great time soaking in the atmosphere and playing video games. She also ran into Lily's husband Victor, who seemed pretty nice. In the queue to get in, she excitedly spoke to the man in front of her, who was dressed as an X-Wing pilot from Star Wars. "Hey, I love your outfit." He turned to face her, a little surprised, and she swallowed. Oh, he was handsome. His dark eyes locked with hers, and she bit back a smile, struggling to stop herself from blushing. The man smirked. "I like yours too. I'm Daichi." "Mandi," she introduced herself, and then the queue started moving, so Daichi headed into the festival. "I hope I'll see you around," he called to her, as she turned to the man who was selling the tickets. She wanted to follow him and talk more, but she couldn't abandon Aruhi. That was who she'd come with after all. She and Aruhi headed off to play some games, and Mandi had a great time at the festival. She was surprised by how hard that gaming contest was, though. She thought herself to be quite good at video games, but had been proven tragically wrong by the ultimate gaming contest. She'd have to practice and come back here. Someday she was going to win that contest. After the festival, she said her goodbyes to Aruhi and headed into the karaoke bar to see if Shayla was there. She was surprised when she almost ran straight into a familiar-looking young man. "Daichi from GeekCon?" Daichi grinned. "Hey, Mandi. I was hoping I'd run into you again. Karaoke?" "Yeah," she agreed immediately, and headed off into one of the karaoke rooms, followed by Daichi. Mandi and Daichi had an incredible evening. He was an amazing singer, and singing with him was so much fun. He was such a funny guy as well. Mandi thought he was absolutely brilliant, and she was very glad when he offered to exchange numbers at the end of the night. A week or so passed, and she kept in touch with Daichi. She also spent a lot of time with Lily. One evening, Mandi invited Lily round and offered her a key to the apartment. Lily seemed surprised, but very touched. "I know it hasn't been long," Mandi told her, "but you've become a great friend, Lily. My best friend. Thanks for being there for me. I want you to be welcome here." Lily smiled fondly. "You're a great girl, Mandi, and you're my best friend too. Thank you for this. I warn you though, you might be seeing a lot of me now." "Perfect," Mandi replied happily with a grin. The next night, she thought it might be fun to check out Lily's part of the city, and she made her way up to a place called the Stargazer Lounge. There was a strange thing there, which seemed to be a machine for blowing bubbles. Weird. Of course, she had to give it a go. She managed to do it first time and was delighted to see the row of bubbles floating away from her, almost shining and reflecting the city lights. Looking around, Mandi spotted a glass balcony and ran to the edge with a gasp. "Wow," she breathed. From up here, she could see the whole city, and it was absolutely incredible. The lights were shining like stars, cars flashing across the bridge, and she even thought she saw a helicopter. The sky was murky by this point, but as she looked out at the city lights, nothing could wipe the smile from Mandi's face. She'd finally achieved her dream of moving to the city, and she was where she'd always wanted to be. This was her life now, and she couldn't believe she was finally here. She felt like she'd never cease to appreciate the gravity of where she was and what she was doing. The next day, Lily invited her out again. She told Mandi that she absolutely had to see the art gallery, promising her that she would love it. Lily had got to know Mandi quite well by this point, and she knew what she liked. They went round admiring the art, and on the top floor, Mandi was thrilled to discover a music room. This was so perfect. She could learn the keyboard. Maybe once she started making some money, she could save up and get herself a keyboard. She wasn't very good right now, but she was still having a great time, and she was glad Lily brought her here. She had to come again sometime. Everything had changed so much since Mandi had moved to the city, and it had all been for the better. She'd spent so long dreaming of a life like this when she was a child, and now, even though she might not have had a lot, Mandi Romero felt like she had it all. Thank you for listening to the first chapter from my random legacy. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I will be continuing it next week, I think. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you back again next week.